what I'd like to do now is to show you our standard, how quotes are done within TSM. So within TSM6, it's different in TSM7, but within TSM6, a job card and the quote are basically one and the same, but with subtle differences. So to create a quote, I just go and press New, I choose my customer, whoever that happens to be, and I tick the quote button down the bottom here. I'll save that. Okay, let me just try that again. So I'll pick a customer, I tick the quote button and save that. So here's our quote in the system. It looks just like a job. It's got just the same fields as a job. Everything's the same as a job, except it's not a job, it's a quote. And so it won't appear in my job reports or anything like that. It just appears in my quote reports. It still has all the details of a job. It still has equipment if we want. It still have assignments. Subtle difference really comes in at the parts level. So if I go and add a part to a quote, you will see that this is a quoted part. And what that means is that this particular part will not come out of stock when I add this to the job. It won't appear in that movements tab in the product record. It hasn't actually, anything's happened with this part. I've just put this as a part, and you'll notice this is a quoted part here, as opposed to an actual part. I can't choose actual parts for quotes because I'm not allowed to add actual parts to a quote. I can only add quoted parts to a quote. So I can go and add all my parts to the quote. Once I've added up all my parts and so on my invoicing tab, it's updating my parts figure over here. But I could turn around and say, look, I'll just round that out to $160. So I can put whatever quoted price I like on the back here. That may or may not add up to what the parts actually add up to. I can put whatever I like. So I might have all these parts that add up to $996.32. I'll round it up to $1,000 or something like that on there. So this is my quote. I can then go and print out the quote. And so there's my quote there. And there's various different layouts of quotes that you can choose. These are all just the very vanilla generic layouts that we've got here. Send that out to the customer, whatever it is. The customer decides then to go ahead with this particular quote. So the only thing I really need to do to convert this quote to a job is to untick the quote button. Okay, so if I untick that quote button, it says, look, I've got a quoted price of $156. Do I want to keep that price because I overwrote it? So basically asking me if I want to keep the $156 price I put in here or take the price of the parts as they added up. And I say, yes, I do want to keep this fixed price. And I go and save that. And what it'll do now is it'll take, it's now converted this quote into a job. If I look at the parts used, however, you'll see that I still don't actually have any actual parts. I only have quoted parts on this particular job. So what I need to do, I need to convert the quoted parts into real parts at the appropriate time. So how does one do that? Well, the first button I have here is allocate quoted parts. What allocate quoted parts will do, it'll do an automatic process that if I have enough in stock, it'll just go and convert them, take them out of stock and put them on the job. So that's the first easy, straightforward one. The second option that I have over here is requisition. And requisition says, and that's a setup option if I turn on requisitions and commitments. That's not part of the basic software. Requisition says, I want to let the storeman know that he needs to go and pick these parts to put them on a job. So as a user who's creating this quote and then job, I can requisition those parts for this job. Okay, I don't go and get the parts. I'm not allowed in the store. I can't pick them. But I can say, Mr. Storeman, could you please go and requisition this particular part for this job and then put it onto the job for me. So then there's a requisition fulfillment function elsewhere in TSM where a storeman comes along and fulfills requisition requests. Requisition is just a request for parts, is what that is. Depending on the workflow of the business. Okay? A lot of businesses don't have storemen, they don't have stores, everyone just goes into the store and does their own thing, so and so on. The third option we have is order quoted parts, and literally if I go and choose this option here, it comes up, I can choose the supplier I want to order it from, or it would have the default supplier if that was set up. I then go and press a button, and I'll come back to that, and it will go and create a purchase order for me. It's created order 678 for me.
So it's in a document now?
Yes, correct. It's still not an actual part on this job, okay? It's a quoted part on this job, but the orders button is now highlighted in red. Red means that there are outstanding orders for this job. I can then go and click on this particular button and it'll bring up the purchase order, which I'll come back to a little bit later, and show you that there's that order, that item ordered for this particular job. But I don't want to go into that too much detail at this point in time. So I can convert the parts to parts on the job through the allocate quoted parts. I can request those parts from the storeman to go and pick those parts and put them on the job, or I can just go and create a purchase order directly for those particular parts on this particular job. Okay?
So would that mean for direct order from the supplier, you're sending it a purchase order to the supplier?
Correct.
So, Mr. Supplier, I want these parts.
Yes, absolutely.
And the parts will go into the warehouse first, and then you should be picking it up from there, or it goes drop ship directly to the...
Too much detail at this point in time.
I understand.
Okay,
But
we'll get to that.
I'm right
Yes,
about the idea.
yes, you are. It's workflow, but there's many different workflows. Okay, so that's the end of the quoting. This is now a job. It has parts on the job. You just treat it like any other regular job. So quoting is very simple. It's one of the criticisms we have, that we don't have complex quoting, and we don't. We only have very basic quoting. I'm currently in the process of writing an interface to a third-party quoting package called QuoteWorks, which will do your very detailed, complicated, pretty quotes, and then we'll be able to convert those quotes into a job in TSM. So it's one of the areas that we don't do particularly well in TSM is the actual quoting itself. It's got the basics, but it doesn't do a nice professional-looking proposal or anything like that. So that's quoting.